Howdy folks, it's Adriel, the hunting gear guy. I've been talking to a lot of guys who are into shooting. They want to get into hunting, not really sure how. I wrote an article on my website. I thought I'd talk through it and throw up a couple of video clips, audio clips, pictures, and that kind of thing, kind of going through it. I'm primarily going to be talking about hunting in Alberta, which has its own regulations compared to some of the other provinces or states you might be in. There's going to be a lot of carryover, a lot of similarities between hunting in Alberta and other places. But I'm primarily going to show the screen because there's going to be more interesting things than that. I'm going to switch over microphones, so give me a minute. Okay, so the first thing you're going to have to do is get your hunting license. Now for Alberta, we get this from AHIA, or the Alberta Hunter Education Instructors Associations, or Association, or AHIA. The cool thing about Alberta is that we do have an online version of this. So if you want to head up onto the top here and look for online training, you're going to be able to find the Alberta Online Hunter Education Certificate. You can get the manual if you want to. I think the manual is pretty cool. It's got like different photos of different animals that you're going to see in Alberta. Makes it easier to see what like the difference between a whitetail and a mule deer and that kind of thing is. So I'd recommend going that way. I think it's worth the extra $20 to get it, but you don't need it. You could just go for straight online. I would say that the like their online portal is a little bit dated, but the material in it is really good. It's got some interesting AV stuff to it in kind of like an Encarta 95 kind of way, and at least it's online. There's a lot of certification like this that isn't online, and it's nice that it is online here. Oh yeah, if you need your boat license, you can get that here as well. So yeah, that's the first place I would start. It's going to help you figure out what kind of game animals you can go after. And just by virtue of this being fresh in your mind, you're going to be a more ethical hunter than a lot of hunters out there. You're just going to know the rules better, and you're going to have this fresh in your head. So I would really recommend starting with your hunter's education course. Now, the next thing you're going to need is another license, and that's going to be your firearms license, assuming you're going to go hunting with a firearm and not with a bow and arrow or something like that. Same guys do those. The HIA also does the CFSC, also known as the PAL course. Now, if you're like slightly into guns, I would recommend getting your PAL and RPAL on the same weekend. It's going to be cheaper. It's going to be just faster to just kind of get them both at the same time. So I would just really recommend getting both of those kind of at the same time. Now, one of the problems with the PAL course is you kind of like the providers are kind of all over the place. You can Google for this. You can look around and see who you can find. And typically you'll find like everything from large providers to small providers to providers that would do this kind of thing inside of a gun range or that kind of thing, or Cabela's. And it's going to be right around like $150 to get the course done. Now, keep in mind, once you get your PAL done, it's going to need a while before it is like you're ready to buy guns or ammo or that kind of thing. I don't know how long it takes. It varies quite a bit. Could take 3 months, could take 9 months, could take a year to get this. So I would just recommend getting your PAL and RPAL like sooner rather than later. It's useful as federally accepted photo ID. So that's nice. You can use it in place of a passport or something like that if you need like 2 pieces of ID. And anyways, get your gun license. Okay, so you've got your gun license. Now you know all those rules, or at least some of them, because while the hunter's ed is fairly straightforward, boy, Canada's gun laws are really messed up and hard to understand. Anyways, I would recommend starting with a small game 22 LR, and the reasons are they're cheap, the ammo's cheap, they're great for practicing marksmanship, and I just love small game hunting. Small game hunting is so approachable, and it's such a fantastic way of getting into hunting. I think every hunter needs a 22 LR, and I think that they're just very useful for like rabbits, grouse, and other kinds of small games. So great place to start. And one thing to mention, like some people will be wondering like, oh, do I get the solid point or do I get like a hollow point for hunting and that kind of thing? And I mean, if we were killing gophers or something like that, we'd use a hollow point because we want to devastate them and kill them as ethically as possible. If we're hunting grouse or rabbits, I like just going for headshots because you can get within close enough distance to take headshots on those game. And if you take a headshot, all the meat is available for you. You don't have to cut around any damaged shot meat. So I'd really recommend, any ammo is going to be fine as long as it's accurate and reliable in your gun. With a bolt action, anything's going to be reliable. With a semi, some standard velocity or like lower velocity stuff might not be reliable. High velocity is typically like a hotter ammo for 22, and it will work in more semi-automatic 22s. But again, we don't really care. We're going for headshots from 10 to 25 meters. You, the shooter or the hunter, are going to need to be accurate in order to make those shots. I don't have this in the article, but if you want to get more accurate with your rifle, I would recommend taking a maple seed. They're like a marksmanship course we can do here in Canada. I'm a instructor for that as well. Now, you may never get into big game, but if you get into big game, I would recommend just starting with like a bolt action scoped rifle in a normal hunting cartridge. There's a lot of other like rifles you could start with. You could start with like a 303 Enfield. You could start with a 30-30. You could start with something older. I like even something as basic as like a Savage Axis. I like because they're available in super easy to find cartridges. The cartridges all have enough oomph to do like deer, moose, elk, anything like that, any kind of big game. And they're very inexpensive. You can definitely get great deals on these if you watch your sales. I would say in terms of like cartridge choice, go with something mainstream. 308, 270, 30-06, 6.5 Creedmoor if you want to get fancy. 243 if you're recoil averse, or if you want this rifle to also be used by a youth or your wife or girlfriend or something like that. They work just fine. I look at a lot of dead deer every year, and I can't really tell the difference between the ones that are shot by a 243 or the ones that are shot by a 30-06. They both work. They both go straight through the deer, and the deer is going to die regardless which one you shoot it with. Now, I'm not going to talk a lot about using shotguns for waterfowl or upland. Typically for waterfowl, you're going to want something that can do 3-inch shells, something that can handle steel shot. Semi-auto is great, but if you can't afford it, a pump is just fine as well. You're not going to really need a lot of technology to throw at it when you're just getting started. Don't worry too much about it. For upland, you could go for a side-by-side or an over-under or something like that if you wanted to go upland. So using your shotgun for grouse and that kind of a thing. And in certain parts of the country, that is the norm. In my part of the country, the norm is using a 22 on grouse. Next, we've got to figure out where we want to hunt. Now, in the olden days, this used to be easy, just anything crown land. These days, there's a couple different designations for it. There's crown land, plus land, conservation areas. There is lease land as well. It's all a little bit confusing, and it depends a lot on your area or your county. I would recommend, I've got some other recommendations here. Try to find a county map if you can. Some counties give away these for free, and a county map will show a map of the area, who owns the land, what the rules are around it, and you may find areas that you can just go hunt in right away. Otherwise, there are these PLUS zones or public land use zones that we have here in Alberta, and basically they're out in the boonies, out in the foothills and that kind of a thing. And in some of those areas, you can hunt. So you'll just have to take a look at what areas those are, whether you need a pass to kind of head out there, and what you're allowed to do as well. There's quite a bit of land here in Alberta that you can use. It's all going to be far from populated areas. So if you live in like Edmonton or Calgary, you're going to have to drive. There's not going to be any great hunting spots half an hour away from Edmonton unless you know someone with some private land. You're going to have to do a bit of a drive in order to get somewhere where there's going to be some hunting. A couple quick notes about getting access. So there might be lease land in the area where you want to hunt, like a grazing lease or something like that. It's basically like a farmer has permission to use a particular parcel of land during the summer as grazing land. But basically, as soon as hunting season starts, most of those grazing leases, they have to allow access to hunters. But you got to call them and ask for permission. So with a lot of these, you'll find them on your county map. It'll say, you'll find like these big grazing leases, and you'll be able to say, hey, call them up and say, hey, I'm looking to hunt on this area. Anything I need to know? Do I have permission to do it? They should give you permission, and they should tell you what to look for. Hey, please don't drive on this land. It's swampy. You're going to wreck it. Please don't wreck any fences, that kind of stuff. Do take care of the land. Make sure you leave it exactly the way you found it, because you don't want to be denied permission in the future. Same thing goes for hunting on private land. If you somehow convince a private landowner to let you hunt on their land, make sure that you know where their house is, where their cows are. Make sure you're not shooting at any of these things, and make sure that you're being a responsible hunter on that land. All right, so let's say we found a spot on the map where we want to hunt. The next thing we have to do is take a look at the WMU that we're hunting in and see what's available out there. This can be a little bit confusing because we've got these little land parcels here and whatnot, but it's actually not that bad. You kind of go off of like, oh, I think it's here, and oh, that didn't do anything. Okay, oh, 33. Let's say 342. Let's look at 342 and see what we have available in that area. So we can just click on that 300, and we can go over here and look for 342. So interestingly, looks like white-tailed deer. Oh yeah, no 342. Okay, no 342 here. Oh, there's a 342 there. So it looks like September 17th to November 30th. Okay, cool. All right. So it looks like there's a general whitetail that's a little bit of an extended season. So rather than from November 1st to 30th, we've got September 17th. So must be a lot of deer in that area. All right. If we scroll down here, we'll see some other things. You'll see these black boxes here. That basically means that you need a draw to do that one. So we need a draw to hunt mule deer. That's pretty normal. Looks like we got some areas. Oh, no 342 for that kind of mule deer. So we can't do the drawless tag on that one. And you can see it's kind of confusing. There's some confusing parts around here. Look at this elk. Oh, there's an elk season. 3-point or larger, so there's a note on that one. But 342, we've got a general elk season in this area, so that's interesting. Now, I'm not just going to go out and buy all the tags for absolutely everything I could hunt in this area. Instead, what I'm going to do is scout it out first. And what I'm going to do while I scout it is I'm going to go during game bird season or rabbit season, and I'm going to scout and small game hunt at the same time. Now, the cool thing about this is that game bird regs are a lot easier to figure out. Generally, the WMUs are very wide. The daily limits and all that kind of stuff are a lot easier to figure out. The season dates are quite a bit wider as well. So there's more time to do this. And it's just before hunting season, so I can spend a little bit of September going out looking for game birds and rabbits, and take my 22 out or my shotgun out if that's what I prefer, and do a little bit of small game hunting. Now, this is a completely random area of the map that I've chosen here. But let's say I want to go hunting in this area. Let's say I found a hiking trail over here along this cut line, so I can get into this little area over here. I would want to know where the deer could potentially be. So they might be in here. I'll never find them. That looks really thick here. I'm not going to find them. What I'm looking for is transitionary zones, so like areas where it's like open. I'm looking for access to water, and I'm looking for where I might see them. Cut lines like this are fantastic. So the nice thing about a cut line is anything that's over there or over there, they got to cross over it at some point. So just sitting on an edge of this cut line would be a good idea. It's very approachable, very easy way to hunt. Alternatively, I could look at maybe sitting on this edge over here and taking a look across this little whatever pasture or whatever this is. And I could take a look and see what might show up there. So again, I would scout from the sky first using Google Maps just to see what's going on. And then I would pop in and do my small game hunting in here. I'm going to be looking for, so let's say that this cut line was looking promising to me. I would hunt this area for small game, and I would look for game trails where deer have been moving through. So they'll especially in September, most of the grass is starting to die, and if they move through there, they will knock the grass down, and you will see a very clear game trail coming through. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. So I'm going to be looking for grouse and rabbit while I'm at it. But I'm also going to be llooking for those game trails where deer might be moving through some of these different areas. So now, there's going to be a certain amount of movement involved in your hunting. Like you might want to, I don't know, you're going to have to hike out to your spot where you're hunting. You might find a deer along the way. You might find one, and you might take your shot before you even need to sit and wait. And that's possible. I would say that I get less luck just hiking around for hours and hours and hours compared with still hunting. So I wouldn't recommend stalking for new hunters. Like, oh, you see a deer 500 meters away, you're gonna like stalk up to it. Like, it's just not gonna work out for a new hunter. If you've got a little bit more experience and you know what the deer are doing, you might be able to do something like that. But you got to consider like wind direction and whether they can smell you. And deer are usually pretty cagey on this kind of stuff, so stalking them is a little bit hard. So I would recommend for new hunters to still hunt, where you set up a spot and you basically ambush them from somewhere. And again, camo is not important. I'm wearing this like big bright orange sleeping bag, and this deer did not notice me. And it got up to 40 meters, and it did not notice me. And I took my shot, and that's it. Now, it did hear me raise the gun. So as I picked up the gun off of the log, it made a click sound. It looked at me. I just waited, because it's looking at my direction. It can't actually see me. I'm not moving. Looked at me. I waited 3 seconds. It put its head back down to feed, and then again, camo's not important. You just like these are like the T-Rexes in Jurassic Park.
Vision's based on movement.
They're not going to see that big red sleeping bag nonsense, even if you think they might. In terms of hunting in Alberta, it gets cold, and because it gets cold, there's a bunch of different tips I have here. Layering on using like really warm socks. So you know what? I'm going to switch to my webcam so I can show you guys. All right, let's talk about some gear. So I am wearing, this is like a Costco base layer shirt. I think it was $15. This is wool. If you can get like merino wool blends or something like that, that's really nice. And it's a pretty thin layer. The nice thing about wearing like a thin wool layer is that this is going to wick away the sweat from me, which is kind of nice. It's got a zipper on it. I could take it or leave it. I don't really care for having this here, because usually I'm wearing a jacket that's got like some big bad thing that'll go over top. I do kind of like the little like thumb hole thing, because it's just this is an easy way of making sure this doesn't slide up if you've got like a tight jacket or something like that to put on. So I do like those little hooks. Next, similar thing for the long johns, as we call them here in Canada, or the pants. I like a nice base layer that I can use underneath. If I'm in a hunt camp, I'll probably wear these like the whole time, and that's going to keep me nice and warm. Now, for a layer on top of this, it really depends. The problem is, in Alberta here, the weather changes quite a bit, and the difference between -10 and -20 is quite a bit if you're just sitting. And if the wind picks up a little bit, oh man, it can change so much. I have used like a big heavy sweater kind of on top, just to add some heat. It's nice. I would say that I would be careful putting too much weight on your torso, or too much heat on your torso, because you might start sweating. As soon as you start sweating, like too much sweat in something like this, and then when you sit, all that sweat like condenses, gets moist, and just chills you right out. And that can be one downside to wearing too many layers or too many cotton layers when you're hunting. And finally, that takes us to socks. Now, if you go to Walmart or something like that, they're going to have like some big thermal socks that are going to be, I don't know, some sort of poly something or other, which are going to be super warm, but are going to make your feet sweat. And then once you get out to the spot, they're going to hold that moisture against you, and you're going to get cold feet, even if you got like big, thick, fuck off socks that you're wearing. So I prefer wearing warm boots and then just wool socks. Again, Costco, you can get like a pack of 6 of these things, and these are wool socks. So nice and warm, and they're also going to keep the sweat away from your feet, which is really nice. Now, one thing to think about is the sound that your clothes make. A lot of kids' jackets and kids' boots and that kind of thing, they use like a really thick blend or texture of nylon, or poly or whatever, and the real thick, coarse fabric will swish as it's moving together, which on your boots is not the worst. Like, it'll make some noise when you're like going past leaves and branches and that kind of thing. On your jacket is pretty bad, because think about yourself hunting. You're trying to sit, you're trying to stay nice and still. You move your head side to side. That's going to move your your neck piece, and that's going to move around on your jacket. So that's going to make a little bit of noise. And then if you have to move your hands up and you brush your armpit around your arm, like you don't want that to make noise. So think about your jacket. Like the absolute best thing would be like a fleece jacket outside. Those make like no sound, but they're like they suck at cutting the wind. So you'll have to consider the trade-offs there. There is no perfect jacket for that kind of a thing. I do like the soft, really elasticy poly shell jackets that are pretty water resistant, but also pretty quiet. Like those are really nice. They're not ever going to be the jacket I take out when it's -30 though. They just can't handle it. Ideally, bring some electric stuff if you can. I've got an electric jacket that is just battery powered, and the really nice thing there is that you can hike out to your spot. You have your jacket unzipped while hiking out to your spot, and then sit in your spot, zip up, wait. Oh, starting to get a little bit cold after an hour or two. Oh, let's turn on a little bit of extra electric heat. And it can just increase your lasting time out there. Again, we want to sit still. We want to sit out in the hunting spot for as long as possible. And by using that electric heat, it's going to add some time that we can stay out there comfortably out in the woods. I'm going to talk a lot about like cold weather because this is actually the more challenging part of the gear, in my opinion, here in Alberta. You can go get a Savage Axis and it's like, close enough. That's good enough for what we're going to do. But the clothing, oh man, you're going to like torture yourself over the clothing if you bring the wrong stuff out there. I would say bring more than you need. If you're going to go out on a huge excursion, you're going to need to put it in a backpack or something like that. I would take an extra face mask or something like that. If it's -20 and the wind picks up, anything that's exposed is going to start getting really cold, and you're going to get like a sunburn almost from the wind on your face. You're going to get like this wind burn from all this cold air coming past you. So a face mask or something like that's really going to help. If you bring your wife or your girlfriend or your kid or something like that, not your wife and your girlfriend, or don't bring them at the same time. Bring a blanket. Take like a blanket rolled up. It's going to come in handy. I will tell you right now, putting that blanket over top is going to help keep them warm. It's going to help keep you warm too. And if you can put it over both of you, it's going to keep both of you warm. If you bring your kid and they're fidgeting and that kind of thing, put a blanket over top, boom, instant camo. Now you're not going to see your kid moving around because they're going to be behind the blanket or under the blanket. And as well, if you bring a kid, bring some snacks, something quiet, no like loud snacks, like no chips or anything like that. And then finally, you might want to test this stuff out before going on a big hunt. It's kind of weird to try to test the still stuff, but the hiking stuff definitely. If you have a nice crisp cold day, try going out on a hike, a little nature hike with wearing all your gear, and see if you get sweaty. See if it's like way too warm or it's not warm enough. You're going to find out right away, and that's going to just help prep you for your bigger hunting trip. Now, we did all this prep. Now what? Okay, well, we saw the deer. We remember from our AHIA course that's the right deer. We shot the deer, and let's say it's down. Let's say you didn't have to track it. If you did need to track it, you should have a flashlight on you just in case you shot it and then it gets dark. But let's say you've got your deer. You tagged it. Maybe you still got the shakes from the adrenaline, because like humans are predators. We're made to hunt, and when you are just about to make that shot, a lot of times for a lot of people, they get really pumped up. They get a lot of adrenaline because the body is like, yes, we are doing what we were like made to do. We were out hunting. So you can get a lot of adrenaline. You can get buck fever is sometimes what it's called, or you can kind of get the shakes where you're like just vibrating afterwards from all the adrenaline that's pumping through you. But let's say that's all over. You tagged it. Now you got to do something with this thing, and that really depends on where you got it. If you're out in the middle of nowhere, you're gonna have to do quite a bit of work. If you're on a field and your truck's nearby, it's going to be easy, right? You're going to just drive up to it and chuck it in the back of your pickup truck. I have heard of some guys using electric bikes with a little cart on the back to carry deer, and I am kind of jealous. I like the idea. Electric bike would be quiet, and you'd be able to haul that deer out of there. Oh, I'm jealous. I really like that idea. For the rest of us plebs, you're probably going to be dragging it somewhere. If it's a buck, grab it by the horns. Ideally, if there's snow on the ground, it's going to be pretty easy. So just that buck, grab it by the horns, and then the fur will be going the correct way, and you'll be able to drag it out. With a doe, it's kind of a pain in the butt. You can grab like the legs. If you brought a length of rope, you can tie it around its head, and then you can drag it out that way, which is again ideal because you're moving with the fur. You're not pushing the fur the other way. If you got a quad or something like that, that's going to make it easy as well. Throw it up on the rack, tie it down, and bring it out. If you are way out in the middle of the bush, you're going to gut it in the field. So you need to lose some weight on that thing, right? So you're going to pull the guts out, leave those in the field, and you're going to haul or cart it out. In the worst situations, you're going to, I don't know, get out like a survival saw, get a pole, and do like a skid out of it with like tying its wrists around the pole and doing a haul out. If you got another person with you, that's very easy. But yeah, you got to get it out. And then the next thing is processing, turning all that deer into beautiful meat. And you'll be surprised. All this work, it looked so big in the field, and it was so much work carrying it out. And you're going to turn it into jerky or cuts or something like that. And you're going to get out like 40 pounds of meat out of a deer or something like that, which is just going to blow your mind. If you decide to do sausages, I would mix the deer meat with something really fatty. Like if you can go to the butcher and you can say like, hey, do you have any just like straight pork fat? And they're gonna be like, yeah, it's in my junk pile here. Do you want it? And you're gonna get it for free or very cheap. And you're gonna be able to take that fat, grind it up, mix it with your deer meat, and you're gonna get like a nicer consistency. Just the deer meat by itself is so lean. If you put it in sausage, it's just going to be crumbly crap, and it's just going to taste horrible. You need some fat in there. Mix it with some pork fat or something like super fatty. Medium pork, ground pork it will work as well. You just need that fat content in there in order to do it. I would recommend stuffing it inside edible casings. You can get this from, like, you can get sheep intestine that you can stuff. It's cleaned out. Don't worry, they clean the poop out of it, and then you can stuff that. That's one way of doing it. If you're in an apartment and you don't have a lot of space, the easiest thing to do is jerky. So that's just like getting a long knife, slicing up your jerky slices, putting it in a pail or a bucket or something like that with your cure, letting it cure overnight. Throw a little bit of liquid smoke in there if you're going to do this in an apartment. Liquid smoke is it's gonna like fake the smoke smell or taste, and then just dehydrate in your oven. Good enough. That'll get you by. You'll have some jerky out of it. It'll taste great, and it'll be a lot cheaper than the store-bought jerky that you can get. Other than that, deer meat by itself, it has a little bit of a gamey taste. So you might want to do a slow cooker or pressure cooker roast, or cube the meat and do like a curry or a stew, something that's got like a lot of spice in it, because it will have some gamey taste to it. You're going to put off your significant other or yourself if you just try eating it a little bit too straight. And deer by itself is just not going to have enough fat content to just like throw on the grill and just grill. So again, slow cooker or pressure cooker, something like that, or you're going to have to like wrap it in bacon or do something silly like that in order to get that fat content in there. But now we're way off of hunting and we're into like game cuisine, which is like its own little topic that I'm not particularly very good at. So thanks for watching.